Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast with the mission to cover every project throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Laramie Project.
We are from 2000, originally a theatre production and then made into a film by the same people.
That's right.
It was an interesting
Very
film.
interesting,
Very different to anything we've done before, I think.
Again, Lewis picked this one because I was
Yep.
busy and I didn't make a choice. But I'm glad we went with this because it's very different to anything we've covered before.
It is.
And I think, an important kind of film, but we'll
get into the ins and outs.
We'll get to it. Before that, how are you, Lewis?
Yeah, all right. It is recording. It's St. Patrick's Day.
It is. Yeah.
On my way here, there was lots of people around wearing green.
When I left work, left work a bit early today, and it was quite busy in town already. A couple of the old green Guinness Shamrock cats around, but
and everyone discovers their great Irish uncle.
That's right. Yeah,
but it's a good laugh. It's annoying that it's a Thursday, but
I know no Guinness in the studio today, unfortunately.
No,
we did kind of joke about it earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, but it's you don't want to be having a meal whilst you
exactly.
Whilst you're recording.
We'll stick to the vodka cokes that we normally drink.
No, I've been drinking water this whole time.
Okay,
here's my water.
It's a water that's in a little bottle that has
a water bottle.
Familiar label there, but it's vodka and Coke.
But yeah, how are you?
Yeah, I'm right. Yeah, I thought I was going to finish work earlier than I did, so I had a bit of an annoying
still finished earlier.
Yeah, I still finished at 3:30, so I can't complain. But
then came home and finished watching the
film.
Watched
I thought I had 40 or so minutes left. I had about 55 minutes, so
so most of
the film to go, which is good. It's fresh in my mind. We both said we've got masses of notes on this. It's quite a fast-paced kind of thing. But yeah, before we get into that, project news.
Yes. So as I do every week, I've Googled the word project, see what comes up. Both our bits of news this week come from The Independent, which it's a pretty shitty newspaper, but
I was quite a fan at one point. I think it probably was better before it became like a kind of social media kind of clickbait thing.
Yeah,
but there's some decent news occasionally. But
anyway, Ed Sheeran announced his Curveball project that will be a hit somewhere.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's really what is it called? Impartial news there, isn't it?
Yeah. He described it saying it will be a hit somewhere.
Right, okay, yeah.
So he was interviewed by The Project, New Zealand, favorite news source, The Project,
or our rivals, or our inspirations even.
We can collab with them. Basically, they're asking what his next album would be called. Because he obviously had plus times equals. They're like, is the next one going to be called minus?
Yeah.
And he said, that's not going to be the next record I put out. I've got something that's a bit more of a curveball. We've got the first thing of it dropping in 10 days. I don't think it's going to be a massive hit in New Zealand, though, to be honest.
Wow, is it like an anti-Kiwi anthem?
Oh, I think it's because he's been interviewed by a New Zealand.
Yeah. But why would he not be? Maybe they don't really listen to his music.
Yeah, it's. I have seen that. On a separate thing, he did a performance with Bring Me the Horizon.
Right.
And they were talking about going to the studio and recording that.
Right.
So it may be something to do with that, if I had to speculate, because that would be a bit of a curveball, him working with Bring Me the Horizon. Yeah. I never did see the track they performed together, but
no, I think it wasn't an original one for the two of them to
I think it was an Ed Sheeran song
and they did like a bit of a cover kind of thing, which is quite interesting. I'm not a massive fan myself, but I can appreciate they did quite a lot for that kind of genre in popular music, didn't they? Bring Me the Horizon.
I used to be a fan of them, and then they kind of, I'd say, sold out of it. They became a lot poppier and kind of lost their roots.
They're still fairly heavy, are they? Or
they dabble. They dabble.
I remember they brought out the album that was a very colourful artwork. Was that a bit more like poppy kind of?
Yeah.
Because they're kind of pop punk screamo, aren't they?
Yeah. Whereas they used to be like metalcore.
Right. I see. Yeah.
With like constant like.
Is it more
vocals.
Like dance stuff? Throughout, is it now? I can imagine.
They did release a song recently for the Gran Turismo soundtrack, which is like no vocals. It's just like you can imagine the loading screen on a Gran Turismo game. It just sounds like that for like 3 minutes. I was like, yeah, cool, that's fun. But yeah, that would be my guess, but I may be completely wrong. I'm not entirely in the loop with Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I just know that he's currently being sued for copying a song.
Yeah, I heard about that. Well, his latest, one of his most recent singles, I remember probably last summer, was much more kind of dancey, and he's kind of flirted with that kind of stuff before. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've got some sort of, I mean, light dance music is very popular at the moment, isn't it? Like all of the Dua Lipa hits and stuff like that. Like I can't say I don't like it. Like I quite enjoy that kind of music, but there's definitely a kind of wave of kind of.
Yeah, I can't really have an opinion on this court case because I haven't listened to either songs.
Right, yeah.
Oh, no, it's Shape of You, which I can't remember how it goes off my head, but I would recognise it. But I haven't heard the song it allegedly copied. No,
I don't. I saw a headline where it was he was in court and he was surprised that they had recordings of an unreleased song, and it was like his reaction was like, how did you get that kind of thing? So I think it's kind of complicated, and I don't know if someone's thrown him under the bus a bit, but there's always stuff like that, and most of the time they end up paying a bit of royalties to them. Because whether it was intentional or not, everything's apes off something, really, doesn't it? Really,
it's kind of hard to prove definitively.
Yeah, and I think what they try and prove normally, because there's another one weirdly mentioning Dua Lipa. There's a reggae band that are suing her for one of her hits. I think it's Levitating.
Right,
is being claimed as copying another song, like by this kind of new reggae band, and their song was out first, but they're trying to prove whether she would have seen it, and it's like, how do you prove that? Like, do they go through her history? I'm sure that they're not going to release her files. So
Ed Sheeran, the guy who co-wrote Shape of You with him, who happens to be the bassist from Snow Patrol.
Oh, really? Okay.
He came out and said, like, no disrespect, but I've literally never heard of this person or this song, so it's quite hard for me to copy it.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like it is kind of that a lot of the time.
A lot of it's like, if you admit that you've heard the song, you're fucked. But if you don't admit it, like, because the thing is, you could have realistically heard a song on the radio, walking down the street, on a YouTube advert, on a TV advert.
Yeah,
there's no way of proving that at all.
I think I remember seeing an interview of Slash from Guns N' Roses that I can't remember what song it was, but he came up with this riff and was convinced that he'd copied it from somewhere, so played it to loads of people, like went for an archive of music to try and find where he got this riff, and he couldn't find any evidence of it, so he was like, I guess I invented it.
And then the thing is, he could say, I thought you were going to go, and then because he'd showed it to everyone, someone had already released the song before him, and he screwed himself, shot himself in the foot there. Well, fair enough. Nice to hear what Ed Sheeran's up to.
Yeah, he seems like an all right guy.
Yeah, he seems all right.
The other bit of news, as I said, also from The Independent, is Amazon intentionally made it difficult to cancel Prime subscription in secret projects.
Wow.
Project Iliad, cool name, put multiple layers of questions and offers between the main Amazon page and the final cancellation. So, I mean, it's something that we're all kind of aware of anyway, that they make it hard to cancel subscriptions.
There's a term for it, something like, it's not black boxing, but it's something to do with like website design, where it's the kind of thing where, when you're going to buy something and it asks for like, do you want extra insurance or whatever? And the option that looks like the continue option is the yes option to add things on. There's a whole kind of, it's almost like reverse psychology kind of thing to do with website design. I imagine this is like an extreme version of that.
But they're being often design language called dark patterns.
That's it, yeah. So not black boxing, dark patterns.
Close enough. But yeah, they're actually being called out for it, which is nice to see, because it is something you just see everywhere.
Yeah,
I do have a Prime subscription.
To be fair, I was trying to cancel, what is it, Kindle Unlimited, because I got, I think I mentioned on pod, I got a reduced tablet thing back in the Prime Day last year, and it came with 3 months free Kindle Unlimited. I was like, great, read loads of free comics. You just like rent them and return them kind of thing, like borrow them and return them. And then I realized, like, after like a couple of months, I started paying for it, and I hadn't realized. And I still haven't cancelled it because I haven't spent the time to do it. It's this exact thing. Like, you go on the computer, on desktop, it's really hard to find. On the app, it's not there, and it says go to the desktop, and it's just,
you end up having to like Google like how to cancel a subscription.
Yeah. To be fair, most of the time, even like certain settings for things.
I think if it is really awkward, you can go to your bank and stop paying.
Yeah, I think the thing for me is that because it just says Amazon, I think it's under Prime. I don't want to cancel Prime itself, so it's a bit of a difficult
cheeky,
thing.
Isn't
yeah,
it?
So I've got first-hand experience with this, effectively, and I disagree with the practice of
I mean
black magic patterns.
But yeah, so that is the news for the week.
That's the news. You heard it here first.
Yeah, breaking news, the project news. We
should do breaking news. We need to
get like a little breaking news, like the BBC News one is like great, like and it's like
the really long one.
Go,
like, yeah.
We should get like some little news jingle to go into it.
Not too many jingles. I've already got to put the project. What is it called? Personal project.
I do enjoy like listening back to the pod. That's the one bit. Obviously, is a surprise to me.
Yeah, it was quite jarring last. This one just gone. I was like, I played with the volume a bit, and I was like, this is fine.
And I like to play what I imagine the listeners also do. Ooh, where's that from?
Did you get the last ones?
Was Lisa Simpson one of them?
No, it was Bob's Burgers. It was the
Louise.
I can't remember who the other one was.
Have we had a poo one?
Yeah, we had a poo. We had we had a Dark Knight one. Lucius Fox. Whilst we were doing the Dark Knight trilogy.
I don't think I picked up on that.
I put that in there. I've got a folder full of them, so I just kind of pick and choose.
Surprise to me.
Anyway,
but yes, we will be talking about what year was it?
2000. You said it.
2002. The original play was in 2000.
Yes. Who was it? Moises
Kaufman.
Kaufman. Yeah.
So the Google description: the Laramie Project. Well, it's the Google description for the play.
Right.
The Laramie Project is a 2000 play by Moises Kaufman and members of the Tectonic Theatre Project about the reaction to the 1998 murder of gay University of Wyoming student Matthew Shepard in Laramie, Wyoming.
Yeah, I've got the film one here if you want to just compare them.
Yeah, go ahead.
A town comes to terms with the murder of Matthew Shepard, a 21-year-old gay student, after he was brutally beaten and left for dead. Later, the nation unites to put an end to hate crimes.
Yeah, that seems fair. So
pretty similar kind of stuff.
Basically, a 21-year-old was killed in this town for being gay, and it's kind of looking into that.
Yeah.
So it's directed and written by Moises Kaufman, who wrote the play,
cool,
and then made the film. It's the only film he's ever made because he's primarily a stage writer.
Right, I see, yeah.
Through the Tectonic Theatre Project.
Yes,
great name, by the way.
Yeah, very.
We got double project this week.
Yeah, and it was what was it produced by HBO Films? Is it?
Yeah, HBO. Yeah. So they made the play 2 years after the incident. It was a big success, got popular, so they made it into a film and got a shit ton of people.
Yeah, the cast is. I hadn't looked into anything, and I'm sure there's loads of people I didn't recognize, but at least like 10 or so.
Yeah, so I've got like 10 written down, but there's more though. Yeah. These are just 10 people that stood out to me when looking at the cast. I originally wrote down like 4 and then started watching it and recognized someone, so then went back and wrote down more.
Yeah, because you look at stuff a little bit before, don't you? Yeah, I didn't.
Because it's HBO, we didn't get a budget or a box office.
Right. Okay.
It's not clear. I'll do the ratings in a second.
So, was it released in theaters then, or was it just straight?
I don't think so. I think it was straight to TV.
Interesting. Yeah, distributed by. Yeah. Fair enough.
So it had Rotten Tomatoes 92%, which may be the highest we've done.
Yeah, may well be. Yeah, it's highest of memory anyway. Yeah, from memory.
And IMDb 7.1, so it still doesn't break out of that rough range. But anyway, the long list of cast members, I'm doing it in list of where they're listed on Wikipedia.
Right.
So Nestor Carbonell plays kind of the main guy from the theatre group.
Yeah, I really recognised him. And he's playing Moises, isn't he? Actually. Is it Moses? I think it's
Moises because it's got an I.
Yeah.
I immediately recognised him from Lost.
Right.
Where he plays a guy on the island. You will probably recognise him as the mayor of Gotham in the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah, which we have covered very recently, as you mentioned.
And the other thing I've seen him in is Imperium, the Daniel Radcliffe film where he infiltrates like a far right Nazi group.
No, I haven't seen that. It's on Prime, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I mainly recognise him from Lost. I think I've mentioned before. I loved Lost. Next is Christina Ricci.
on Wikipedia on IMDb under Dark Knight, he's just Mayor.
He has got a name.
So they didn't credit him as anything.
So Christina Ricci, who people best know as Wednesday in the Addams Family,
in the kind of
the 90s one,
2000s, she's in lots of things.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, another thing quite notable. And I didn't realise Matrix Resurrection, the latest Matrix film, which I still haven't seen.
She's not in it much. I think it's because the Wachowskis worked with her on a couple of projects. So it's kind of like she's not really recognisable, and it's just there for the sake of it. Yeah.
So next up, we've got Dylan Baker, who is one of those faces you recognise. He's in Requiem for a Dream. He's in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy as Kurt Connors.
Yes, that's right, and he plays the Doctor in this as well.
He's in loads of TV stuff, like off the top of head, things like NCIS, Law and Order, and all that kind of stuff. Laura Kinney.
Yes, recognised her.
Literally in like a couple of scenes.
Yeah, they show her early on, and then she's got an interview later.
Frasier, she was in The Truman Show. I mainly recognised her from. She plays Truman's wife.
Right.
We got Jeremy Davis, who plays the guy who's like an actor wishing to be an actor.
Yes,
Who again I recognised from Lost.
Recognised him vaguely.
And I was like, oh yeah, we got the Lost crew, the Lost boys. He's in Saving Private Ryan as Private Upham.
I haven't seen that somehow.
Oh my god!
I know. See, this is the whole thing of making the spin-off podcast where I watch
stuff that everybody else has seen.
Weird films that's weird I haven't seen.
We've also got Michael Emerson, who I recognised from Lost.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, Lost Boys. He's also in Saw.
Yeah, I vaguely recognise him.
Yeah. We've got famed character actress Margot Martindale.
Yes, I recognise the name. And isn't she...
BoJack.
BoJack, yeah, that's
where she plays a caricature of herself as famed actress, famed character actress Margot Martindale. This is the first thing I've ever seen her in, and I was like, oh my god, it's Margot Martindale.
Yeah, okay, same for me then. Yeah, I was a little bit confused about where I knew her from then, but that clears that up.
Arguably the biggest name on the list, Steve Buscemi.
Yes, yeah,
plays a small part, but he's probably interested in the project, so he got involved. People know him from Reservoir Dogs, Armageddon, Big Lebowski, Monsters Inc. a voice role, but yeah, it's Steve Buscemi. Everyone knows Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
Ben Foster, who is in the Punisher film. He's in the X-Men films as Angel, the early 2000s ones.
Oh yeah, he's the guy who finds Matthew.
Yes. Yeah.
Very young in this. He's playing like 15, 16.
Yeah. Two more of this long list. Joshua Jackson, who you would recognise
from Dawson's Creek.
Pacey. Who plays quite a big role in this. He's in it probably more than most people.
He's in it quite a bit throughout. Yeah, I think he would have been quite a big name at the time, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, through Dawson's Creek. And then finally Clancy Brown.
I was gonna say, did you get him?
Whose voice is probably as recognisable as his face.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in Shawshank Redemption, Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
But his voice, Mr. Krabs, Lex Luthor.
Yeah, he is in Invincible. He's the Hellboy character.
He's in the Clone Wars series as Darth Maul's brother, Savage Opress.
He's actually in Mandalorian. He's the alien when there's the prison break. He's the one with the red. He looks like a devil in that as well.
And he's also Surtur in Thor Ragnarok.
Right. Yes.
So a shit ton of voice actors. Acting credits, but yeah, that is a long list. It made me laugh that there's 3 people in this who are from Lost, and this was 6 years before Lost.
Yeah. So you can tell they'd all worked together in some form or another.
Yeah, there
was a couple other people that I recognised that I didn't know what they were from.
Yeah,
I recognised the name. One of them, Summer Phoenix. I recognised the name, who is River Phoenix and
part of the Phoenix family.
Sister. Didn't recognize her from anything. It was just in the credits. And there's some older kind of actors and actresses who I think people would know, especially if you're living in America. Peter Fonda was the Doctor. I really recognized him, but I didn't know who he was until I looked it up. and Clea Duval, who's one of the kind of people who's doing the interviews.
Yeah.
There's two female
like the main one.
Yeah, the one
I
who
recognised her, but I didn't know where from.
I think a lot of because the main cast, as we'll talk about, a lot of them are either gay or lesbian.
Yeah.
And I think she plays quite a lot of gay lesbian roles. So I think a lot of them, they probably took the role because they felt quite personal about the issues, which is completely
so before we really get into it, to kind of frame the film,
we should probably
it's based, so in 1998 this Matthew Shepard was murdered. Really happened in America. This is based on a true story.
It's quite graphic. I mean, we won't go into anything too, it's not true crime really, but it is,
and
it's
Moises Kaufman and the Tectonic Theatre Group project went to Laramie in Wyoming, bit of a backwards cowboy town. And basically interviewed a load of people and then created their stage play.
That's right.
That was then made in this film. This film is framed as following these theatre people.
So it's almost like a found footage, but it's a recreation of original interviews. They said it was 400 hours of interviews.
Yeah.
And they've recreated it, I suppose, word for word. I mean, it might.
They said they used the transcript.
Yeah. So I imagine it was then. And then it's.
And I don't want to use the term mockumentary, but it's a documentary. That's acted.
It's a dramatized documentary. Isn't it, really? Yeah.
And basically the film goes through these theatre people's reaction, interviews with the people of Laramie, and kind of the story as it's happening.
Yeah.
In flashback type things.
Yeah, we kind of get a bit of an intro at the start that kind of doesn't necessarily spoil stuff, but it kind of gives a bit of an overview of what's happening. And then we kind of go back to square one. Yeah. And they pick it up as it's happening. So the attack has happened.
Yeah.
Pretty much days before. And then we see
these theatre people have arrived a year later to interview everyone.
Yeah.
But it's kind of.
and then we're seeing.
It switches between the story happening and them interviewing everyone.
Right. So they know everything that's happened already, but we see the dramatization stuff. That's where it comes in. So a lot of these characters that we see them kind of attending vigils and that sort of thing as if it was at the time. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it opens with a shot of this. It's a typical small American town. The population's 26,000 or something like that.
Yeah, they say it's so small that you can kind of get lost. You can kind of be anonymous there, but also have people know you. It's kind of in the middle of the two kind of thing.
And there's some narration that basically it's you don't know what's happened or what they're talking about, but everyone's kind of Laramie isn't this kind of town.
Yeah.
We all thought it was outsiders come in and did this. No one from Laramie would do this.
Yeah, a lot of people
bullshit
or something. Yeah, and as we see as we go through, there's clearly a lot of underlying stuff which people aren't comfortable talking about.
There's a lot of interviews that are very subtle in their blatant homophobia.
Yeah, it's they don't even realize they're homophobic. Almost.
The general feeling of this town is that we're fine, we're not homophobic, we just don't like gays. As if that's an acceptable stance.
There's a whole thing where they talk about later where it's live and let live. And they're saying that's the kind of old-fashioned attitude, and this guy who's openly gay is that's bullshit. You're basically saying, if I don't tell you that I'm gay, it's fine. But as soon as you know, you hate me and you'll beat me up. And it's a lot of it is you see very contradicting interviews.
Yeah, a lot of it is people of Laramie being we're not homophobic. And then the gay people of Laramie being this is a horrible place to live.
Yeah. And then it gets to the point where there's people saying why are they treating this person special because he's gay? And it's no, it's because he was killed for who he was.
And brutally. But, we'll get into it. So
we'll move through it.
Yeah, it properly starts. There's a news story. A man is in a coma after being beaten up. He's a college freshman who was beaten, tied to a fence, and left for dead. And everyone's saying they hope it's from someone ever out of town. And a lot of people being concerned that Laramie is now a town defined by a tragedy rather than what the town actually is.
Yeah. There's a lot of that moving through this where people are we need to move on, and especially in the early half, people saying we need to move on. It's
and then it comes up on screen. The film is based on transcripts of over 200 interviews with the people of Laramie, Wyoming.
Yes.
Wyoming is one of those places I've never. It's a big state, but it has like barely anyone living there.
Yeah,
it's quite a forgettable place from my understanding. Like,
tag Wyoming in the description and see.
As if any of the 4 people that live in Wyoming are going to listen to this.
The 4 people, along with the 26,000 in that one town.
I think I looked on a map of Wyoming after. And I don't think I knew any towns in Wyoming.
Well, you know one now.
Yes.
Defined by this tragedy.
Yeah. So, it's the night of November 14th, 1988. Lots of people are thinking twice about being interviewed about this because they kind of want to move on.
Yeah.
A lot of the students want to talk. It's cut very kind of jumps around all over the place to get a general feeling, which makes it hard to follow and make notes.
We both got lots of notes, so we kind of move on as best we can.
Yeah, sorry if it gets a bit complicated, but
I mean, we can always skip over certain bits, but I think we'll try and. Yeah. I mean, one of the first people that we get interviewed is one of the teachers of Matthew. Is that right? And he's talking about. It's the theatre teacher, sorry, and she's talking about how they need to do something to do with this, and I think that's what comes back to at the end when they say they're going to put a production on. And wait, hang on, someone doesn't want to talk about it. They're making a play.
There's lots of people who are unsure about being talked about, and a lot of people are just like, it's been a year, we all want to move on from this now.
That's right. And we see like a shot of a preacher like doing a sermon. And it's very kind of conservative, kind of
says that people think the world is 6 billion years old, but we know it's only 6,000 years old.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
And there's people saying things like, "Oh, I don't give a damn about the gays one way or another," and it's like, but you don't like them is the point.
You do care. It's just in the wrong way. They talk about how the downtown area is still very turn of the century style. Yeah, and you see the shots of like the old town. It looks like a cowboy town. Like
most of it could be any town in America, but then, like the main high street is how you'd imagine like an old western. Yeah,
just
street.
with like modern stuff on top of it, kind of thing. Which is interesting because it shows that it's kind of like. I think it's supposed to show that the town, although it's grown, is still very much this kind of old fashioned. Yeah. Conservative town.
And then we get an interview with one guy, Jeremy Davis, who I mentioned.
We don't get names come up, do we?
Which makes it hard to follow.
Yeah, we will end up using the actors' names quite a lot, like this.
If I can remember. But yeah, Jeremy Davis, he's the guy who really wanted to get into acting. He's not gay.
No.
But he's kind of interviewed as a member, because Matthew Shepard moved to Laramie to go to Wyoming University to study theatre.
Yeah.
Which is why kind of the acting side of it is important.
Yeah, he's talking about he wanted to do a scene for a theatre competition.
Yeah.
And the scene was from Angels in America, which I think is a famously gay play, but I didn't know that.
He did a scene that's like a monologue about like being gay and the battles and stuff like that.
And his parents raised him to believe that homosexuality was wrong.
Yeah.
And when he told them about the competition, even though he was really excited, they refused to
They refused to go because he was playing a gay man.
Yeah. And he said like when he did it, he was still very proud to do it.
Yeah, he got a standing ovation, won first place, and was like proud.
The whole time he was looking in the audience and they weren't there, kind of thing. So it's kind of like there's lots of these kind of little anecdotes that show
it's kind of setting the scene of the town of like it is a homophobic town, but they deny it.
We find that the state itself is pretty not necessarily the whole state's homophobic, but it's not very progressive in terms of LGBT communities.
And I've actually read, as a side note, that Laramie is the most progressive town in Wyoming.
Wow, okay.
So the fact that a lot of these people live in the most progressive town in Wyoming.
Yeah.
That may be 20 years ago. It may have improved since then.
I mean, the thing is, I think we've even mentioned it on pod. If you watch back even things like Friends or other kind of sitcoms, lighthearted things at the time, there are lots of jokes which are, mid-90s. It's like being gay is the butt of the joke. All the Chandler stuff in Friends,
Yeah.
We in a lot of ways, especially in portrayals, we've come a long way in 25 years.
And obviously it's kind of weird for we live in Brighton, like
I was
the gay
about
capital of England, which I feel like England's more accepting than America in lots of ways. Like this, I think compared to the extremes in America,
because we're so small.
Yeah,
it's much more of a. We're all much more concentrated, so it's harder to find big areas where people don't have contact with gay communities now.
So like
even like rich areas in the country, there'll be gay couples that go up and buy a house there or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's less like this having cowboy country where
Brighton, like homophobic people are the minority, the strange, weird ones.
Yeah.
Which it just kind of you kind of forget how homophobic some places can be, particularly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just like
it was very jarring watching this.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's been 20 years, 25 years kind of time, 24 years, whatever. It still feels very modern, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't say I've been to Wyoming or talked to Wyoming, so I don't want to make a sweeping judgment. But
other than the one you made 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, but you see like the modern political climate in America, there is certain areas that are still very
especially with
backwards.
all the Trump stuff recently.
So anyway, they want to meet a few people that knew Matthew. They talked to character actress Martindale,
and she runs a shop.
She calls him Matt. Not many people call him Matt, but is it her daughter, Christina Ricci?
It's sister, but they look way different in age. But they're supposed to be sister and sister.
So she knows Matt through Christina Ricci's character, who is Matt's best friend. We also meet Steve Buscemi, mechanic, who knew Matt. He still has the opinion like, oh, I don't care if you're gay. But he seems to be more genuine, like, cool, you're gay, I don't care. Than the other people are like, don't tell me.
Because there's a story, the reason that he met Matthew, is he hired Matthew and I guess a few friends hired Steve Buscemi to take them out of state to the nearest gay bar, which is in Colorado. And he's like, cool, like I'm fine with that. And like I think he effectively went on a night out with them. We don't really get the details or anything. But...
Whereas everyone else is like, I don't care about being gay. He genuinely doesn't. He's just like, cool, you're gay, whatever. He's one of the better characters.
He comes across very well in
this. And then Christina Ricci says that he went to Laramie to go to Wyoming Uni.
I was getting into the mindset that there was going to be like major twists in this, and when Steve Buscemi was like, he said that they call him Matthew because that's the official name that's going around. And when Steve Buscemi talks about it, one of the first things he says is like, oh, no one calls me Matthew, call me Matt. And then when Christina Ricci starts calling him Matthew, I'm like, is she like a fake friend that's like come out because of the tragedy? No, I guess she was just repeating what she was being asked. Like it turns out I think she's a lesbian as well. I think she mentions later. But that's not really. There's lots of people in this who you don't like. It's not the important thing whether they're gay, whether they're lesbian, whatever. And some people are open.
There
to
is clear allies as well. Like
the guy Pacey,
is not a gay character, but is clearly involved in the gay community and is friends with the gay community.
Exactly.
So and same with Martindale. It's not exactly clear, but as you said, it doesn't matter.
Some people, they seem to be like a little bit homophobic, but they are still very against everything that's happened, and they're kind of in the mid ground kind of thing. And then there's people who are full on allies.
So we then talked to Matthew's academic advisor,
right,
who's played by a guy who's actually part of the Tectonic Theatre project.
Oh really? Okay.
So somebody that was actually in the play, I think. And he describes Matthew as like shy and like a bit of a mouse, but at first, but eventually like grew into it and become more natural and was just kind of excited. He said he always thought that he wouldn't end up going to theatre. He'd go into like human rights stuff.
There's lots of like real kind of tragic stuff in this where they're talking about his potential, and Christina Ricci's character, she's talking about how he was always like beaming and he would always just talk to whoever he wanted, like he'd just be friendly all the time.
And just had like a huge smile. And 48 hours before he was killed, he joined like the big gay and lesbian group in Laramie.
Right,
I say big, like all the gay and lesbian people coming together.
And we get a little bit from a farmer rancher guy who's openly gay, but he says I think he's openly gay, but he doesn't like talk about it too much because he said like when he goes to the gay bars in Colorado, he says loads of the people are from Laramie there because they although they're from Laramie and they've moved to Colorado because it's just like
it's quite interesting that he's like he talks to people that are from Laramie, and he's like so many of them are like happy to not be there, but at the same time miss the town.
Yeah, he said there's like a minority that I love the town. Like it is like the scenery is beautiful. Like it does seem like a lovely place. It's just I think a lot of people feel their lifestyle wasn't accepted. And
I imagine as like if you were a straight guy, it'd be a lovely town to live in.
Yes,
but lots of people aren't, and therefore it's not.
Yeah.
We also get another bit with Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
He says there's more to gay people than meet the eye. He's like there's loads of subtle gay people in Wyoming that you wouldn't think are gay, but are gay, but they don't make a...
See, this made me think that he was going to, like, come out at the end.
Right.
And I don't know if that is... Do you think there's an implication there at all?
No, I don't. I think he's just
I think at this point I thought that. But...
And he talks about the Wyoming queer, and he's like, people in Wyoming are, like, hard as nails.
Yes.
Like, you say something horrible to, like a cowboy from Wyoming, they'll still beat the shit out of you, even if they're gay.
Yeah.
I think he does generally seem to have the gay people are no different to straight people kind of view.
Definitely, yeah. We also get another teacher who she talks about coming out. She said she had to come out basically in the interview because they asked what her husband did, and she's kind of the opinion that she is just proud and she's out, but she's had conversations with women who said that they won't be seen in public with her because there is this air of kind of not necessarily danger. I mean, they feel the danger after the events, but before it's the prejudice is
there's lots of gay women that don't want to be outed by hanging out with other gay women.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So then we get an interview with the barman.
Yes.
Pacey.
Yeah.
Joshua Jackson.
Also in Fringe as well, which
he's basically he was working at the bar when that night happened. He said it was karaoke
He's got
night.
the most kind of he's almost the best eyewitness to the preceding events anyway, isn't he?
So he said so writing barman's created to Batman. I've got Batman telling story, and I'm like, wait, what's Batman got to do with this?
Back to the Silver Screen Project. He basically, first of all, he says loads of good things about Matthew. He said he came into the bar quite a lot. He was always friendly. It's the same stuff we've heard, you know.
Yeah.
And then these two guys.
Matt significantly came in that night alone, sat at the bar where he always sits, ordered like a Heineken.
Oh yeah, because he says he sat where you guys are because the people interviewing are there. Yeah.
And then these two guys come in, Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney.
That's right.
Who are well known in the area.
Yeah, they kind of these are people that you really get conflicting views across.
Yes.
Because the initial way that we're introduced, so they introduce us paying for their pitcher of beer in chains, like dimes
and nickels, and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake.
So they're it's not a good opinion initially.
Yeah, they kind of dicks.
And everyone says like, they were assholes, but they weren't. The people are of the opinion that they're not malicious enough to do this. But
when it says, and then Russell Henderson and Aaron McKinney came in, I was like, okay, so they're the murderers.
Yeah.
So you've already got that kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, okay, yeah.
At the same time, it is made clear that they're 20, but like they're kids. Like, it's kind of they're dumbass kids.
Yeah.
But then they do also do something horrific. And there was apparently some rumors that the reason that they had taken Matt was about money.
Yes.
But Christina Ricci says like he was rich. He didn't care about money. If somebody like tried to mug him, he would just give them the money and go away.
And I think he had his wallet on him still as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really make no sense. Attempt to have a cover story for what happened as well. Which it comes back again later. Like it wasn't necessarily a premeditated crime, but there was a lot of steps to the crime.
Yeah. So then we get the side of the story from McKinney's wife.
Yes.
So this is what she believes happened. And she said Henderson and McKinney were just keeping to themselves, playing pool.
Yeah.
Matt came over and was talking to them. Apparently made a pass at them.
Yes.
And Aaron McKinney got annoyed because he's not gay, doesn't like gays.
Yeah.
And that's when McKinney and Henderson decided to teach him a lesson to not come on to straight people.
Yeah, and they say they pretended to be gay
to like get him away. And like even if that's true, still fuck you guys.
Yeah,
like,
that's like fucked up. Like
that's fucked up. Like
it's about they said they were gonna rob him and teach him a lesson.
Yeah, and it's like, and that's like from his wife, like the most on his side you could get.
And she's like, they weren't trying to kill him, like they were doing this. It's like you what are you talking about?
We get an interview of a guy who's like, oh, well, yeah, what they did was wrong, but he was coming on to them. So it's kind of like 50-50.
Yeah, I'm
like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it really shows.
Also, they did quite mention it, but like, imagine if like a straight guy did that to a straight woman.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's teach them a lesson for coming on to me when I didn't want to. There wouldn't be an argument about it, would there? Like,
so
I bet these two guys regularly came on to women who weren't interested, and
none of the women ever.
And it's such a double standard. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then the bartender is saying basically any statement of them, of Matthew coming on to them, he just refutes completely, and he's like, they were sitting, I think they were sitting in the area that he was originally in.
Yeah, they came over to him.
So they approached him, basically.
And the barman's like, he knows Matt, and he's like, he's not that sort of guy. He wouldn't just hit on people.
Yeah.
Like, that's so out of character. And the fact that he was there in the bar, you could kind of see him in those...
The one bit that I kind of didn't like Pacey character a little bit, because he's a little bit cocky, and I think he's just supposed to be like a bit of a dumbass, like white guy from the country, but he's like, Matthew didn't just hit on random people. I mean, if he did, like, he would have hit on me, right? And it's that kind of straight attitude where it's like, oh, I don't want to go to a gay bar, everyone's gonna hit on me. It's like, you look like a fucking slug, mate. No one's trying to hit on you. Do you know what I mean? I think that's just, I mean, if that's the transcript, it's the transcript.
Yeah,
it came across like,
there's a couple of things he does that he's clearly... Like, there's bits where he's just like grinning for the cameras at certain points when there's news there, and it's like, come on, dude.
And they talk about, it's one of the final parts of it, and it's talking about testimonies, and it's not spoiler to talk about it, but he says like, oh, it's like, I'm born for the stage, but it was really difficult giving the testimonies. And I'm like, I think it's just, he's a flawed human, but his heart is in the right place generally.
But importantly from this, he said he'd seen Matt leaving with two guys, only saw the back of the head, pretty much knew it's Henderson and McKinney.
That's right. He said he can't say for sure, but they were gone. And there was two guys.
And he kind of has like some regrets. He was like,
yeah,
he knew that situation wasn't normal, because he knew them and he knew Matt.
Yeah, he's like, I wish I wasn't washing the glasses at that point.
Yeah,
like, he's really beating himself up, which I think is why he kind of is involved from here on out. He maybe wouldn't be if he hadn't been so personally involved.
So next we're introduced to this young kid, and we've kind of got shots of the fields. And he was saying he was walking through like across fields and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's saying he walked a different way to the way he usually did.
Yeah.
As if God wanted him to walk that way.
Yeah, he's a religious teen.
Yeah.
And he's quite a conservative religious teen, as a lot of people are.
Yeah, and he said he noticed something by a fence and thought it was a scarecrow.
Because
it was October.
Yeah.
And then he saw some hair and he knew it was human.
Yeah.
So he quickly ran to the nearest house and called the police.
Yeah.
And then we get like a new chapter heading, which is statement of fact.
I didn't write down these because I think I missed the first one. And
so
I was like,
this is, you get some radio breaking news saying that it's basically we're at court now. 2 kids have been arrested. Details were coming out, and the judge I think this is before like the actual hearing.
Yeah, we get a montage.
The charges.
Before that, we get a little montage of the news breaking.
Yeah,
and a lot of the characters we've met like turning to the TV or whatever. Yeah.
But the judge.
And then everyone goes to the courthouse, which is weird. Like Pacey and everyone.
Yeah,
which is I think probably a bit of a dramatization.
But I think it's because they knew him as well.
Yeah, they all rushed the courthouse to hear like the.
I think it's the charges.
The charges being read. Yeah.
Yeah. So the judge reads the facts and he says, Aaron McKinney, Russell Henderson, and Matthew Shepard met at a bar. Matt said he was gay. They tricked him into leaving with them, pretending they were gay. On the journey in the truck, he was hit on the head with a pistol.
That's right, yeah.
Then they tied him to a fence, robbed him, and tortured him, and left him for dead. Which obviously is horrible to even think about.
It's spoken in a very plain way because it's kind of like a statement of the facts they know at the time, kind of thing. And it's we don't really hear much from the two guys until later on.
Yes.
So we don't really know. But
this is the first we've seen of them, and they don't say anything.
They're just two. I think one of them's 21, the other one might be 20 or something like that.
But then we have an interview with the policewoman who's in it quite a lot from here.
She's called Reggie,
Yeah, and she was the one that found...
this is pretty horrendous stuff,
she said there was harsh head wounds, there's injuries. Basically he was covered head to toe in blood, and the only place that there wasn't blood is where blood had been washed away from his tears.
It's really heavy stuff.
I think this is around the time I messaged you being like,
I got a message from Lewis saying it's a hard watch, and I was like, cool. And I hadn't looked into it at all, but I assumed it was like a real I think you said it's based on a real thing, and I was like, and then as soon as I got like a bit into it, I was like, okay, I can see where this is going. And
and we get a doctor saying,
I think this is Peter Fonda,
saying the injuries he got was the equivalent of crashing down a hill going 80 miles per hour.
So it's severe stuff, and we find out a little bit later that he had a fractured skull from the base round to one of the ears. So there was like,
I think it was like the eye socket, wasn't it?
Around to the eye socket,
like all the way around.
So like a big section was misplaced.
And we hear the judge saying that they'd found like Matt's shoes, his wallet, and some possessions in the truck of Russell Henderson.
The card it was.
The card, so they took his shoes and wallet.
They ask about that later, and I can't really remember what the reason. I think it's just sadistic stuff, really, isn't it? Basically. And then so who's Clancy Brown? Is he like the DA?
Yes.
Because I thought he was like the police
clear,
chief, but I think later on he's some sort of DA role, kind of thing.
And Matt was tied with a thin white rope. His shoes was missing. This is the policeman saying that she originally rolled him on his side and he stopped breathing, so had to lift him back up. Trying to cut this rope.
Gently cut it without hurting him.
And eventually get him to hospital.
The police chief, Clancy Brown says that the crime scene was in a particularly perfect condition. He said normally Wyoming is quite windy. So the tire tracks would have been blown away and stuff, footprints, but it's this kind of thing that is going throughout that almost it was meant to stay that way. People have this belief that it was meant to be found and they were meant to be. It
kind of adds to what the kid was saying. Like God wanted it to not
to happen, but for these people to be found guilty of it, kind of thing. And that's kind of because it's a fairly religious area, so there's this belief going throughout.
The policewoman says that like if she didn't know when they got to the doctor that it was Matt Shepard, she never would have recognized him based on his injuries.
I think she saw a picture of him, a regular picture of him the next day or a couple of days later, and she just didn't recognize him at all.
So then they leave the court, like all the kind of main characters, the uni guy, Pacey.
Well, just before that, the doctor says that they had to move him within the day to a bigger hospital in Colorado, I think, because the injuries were too extreme for them to look after. And again, he says that he'd like to have believed it was someone from out of town, and he's saying it's like deeply offensive as a Laramie resident to know or to believe that it's someone from the town. And then we get everyone leaving
everyone leaves the court, and there's just like reporters and media everywhere. It's like a media circus.
And this is where like they're talking about the mass exposure, people uncomfortable with the town being seen for this. You see there's an older couple that are like ranchers, and they're doing the whole live and let live kind of situation. But then we come back to them later, and they're actually quite violently homophobic as well. It's almost like they've got like a little switch where they can be kind of nice, but it's this thinly veiled kind of niceties that we were talking about.
And then they're like, there's a couple of people who are like, I don't see why everyone's overreacting. Like, is it because he's gay? Like, this wouldn't happen if it was a straight person, like this overreaction. It's like, yeah, but he wouldn't have been murdered if he was a straight person. Yeah. That's the point.
And if it was found that he was murdered because he was straight, then maybe it would be taken the same way. But that's not the world that we live in. So.
Yeah. So then we get another like subtitle saying Saturday 3 p.m. October 10th. He'd been admitted to hospital on October the 7th, so he's been in hospital for 3 days.
Right.
Still unresponsive. He's got hypothermia, fractured head, bleeding on the brain.
This is when we find about the fracture going across.
And like there's massive temperature fluctuations where he's just completely unstable.
Yeah, just before that we get the talk of the hate crime that we mentioned, and whether it is a hate crime, which is pretty clear to the audience, but I think it's the governor who's very reluctant to call it a hate crime, and he's saying we need to wait and see if it was motivated by hate before we call it a hate crime. And it's like it's very typical kind of politician dragging their feet kind of
later on. We can skip past it later, but Laura Linney's character is like, is this a hate crime? Isn't all murder a hate crime? Because you have to hate someone to kill them. And it's like, you kind of missing the point of what a hate crime is.
And to be fair to her, the only part that I agreed with was her saying, maybe I just don't understand. It's like, you really don't understand. It's very Blue Lives Matter, her opinion, isn't it? Which we'll talk about when it comes around. We get a statement from so the guy reading it was the guy who plays Dr. Connors, isn't he? He's the doctor in charge of Matthew's care.
Yeah.
And he's been given he's giving the updates to the press, which I think before coming out, he's very nervous, isn't he? And we see him going like, does anyone else want to do this?
Yeah.
Because he's basically addressing not just the nation, but the world effectively.
Yeah.
And he also has to read out the statement from the parents, and they're very kind of gracious and thankful, but also asking for privacy, or as much as they're kind of going to be given in the situation. And then we see something where Aaron and Russell are denying the charges. Is that right?
So they both plead not guilty to the original charges.
Yeah. So what is it? Kidnapping and assault, or
kidnapping and first-degree murder.
No, because it's not murder at this point.
Oh yeah, and attempted murder.
Attempted murder.
It is at first.
Yeah. Maybe robbery is in there as well, I think, because they stole
possibly.
It's a triple charge, and then the attempted or assault goes up to first-degree murder.
Yeah. So then we get some interviews with people on their side. So Russell Henderson's landlord said he was always quite sweet and quiet. Yeah. It doesn't make sense that he'd do this.
Yeah, she says that they all went out for drinks, and even when he was blackout drunk, he was still very meek.
Yeah. Somebody says about Aaron McKinney that he was a good kid. Like, he had a kid when he was 21, and he was fine with gays as long as it didn't come up. He had gay friends. And it's like,
we get this. The kind of feel that I got from this part here, especially about Aaron, is that people thought they knew that he was homophobic, even if they didn't say those words.
Yeah.
But there was the impression as well that if you squared up to him, like, he would back down. Like, he was all talk. He was all homophobic talk, but no homophobic action, kind of thing.
Yeah, and there's a guy who says it's all about money, and it's like, he says that being gay is irrelevant. It's about money.
But didn't it say that also, like, is it Aaron or Russell? One of them like always wore like Tommy. They're like Tommy Hilfiger shirts or whatever. And it's like, it's very conflicting, a lot of this, which, because it's effectively a true crime, kind of true story, it's going to be, obviously.
And the landlord says about Russell, she's like, oh, if I could see Russell, I'd just grab him and shake him and say, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
So, like, even kind of the defenders of these two kids are still very... Shocks. What they did was appalling.
Yeah, they're more character witnesses than anything, and they're saying like, I wouldn't ever believe they would have done this, but they're of the belief, they're still saying, why did you do this? There's not really any doubt that they did it. It's more motives really than anything.
Yeah, and this next scene was also aside from like the main story, which is horrible.
Yeah, this came out of nowhere. So we met an old woman earlier who was one of the kind of general
who's a bit like live and let live.
Yeah, she was
I don't like gays, but I don't hate them.
And I recognise her. I can't remember who she was. But yeah, we find out that her daughter is Reggie, the police woman,
and she gets a call and asks to take it in the other room.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the doctor calling. At this point, I thought, oh, Matt's dead.
Yes.
It turns out Matt Shepard was HIV positive.
Yes.
And she'd been exposed.
Yeah.
She had open cuts on her hands, and when she was trying to cut him loose of the fence, his blood had interacted with hers.
Yeah.
She was complaining about how the gloves were terrible and they kept ripping.
I think it was, so they kind of had crime scene type gloves, like latex gloves, and she said it got to the point where she just was taking them off.
And because her main thing was get him untied.
Yeah, she's checking for airways, all that sort of thing.
And she's been exposed.
Yeah,
so
this
is a good chance she's got
very
HIV.
Intense. She needs to be started on the drugs immediately.
Yeah.
They said they can stop it if it's caught early enough, but it's like it might be too late already.
Yeah. But I was just like, oh,
this is so. And she's
could
saying,
you imagine, like, in your duty, like, trying to save somebody and getting HIV as a result?
And like they're both crying, and the older woman, who's her mum, is saying like she's afraid to touch her kids and all this kind of stuff because it's like it's a whole other
like
part.
She doesn't kiss her husband at all.
Yeah,
it's like it's an additional like heart-wrenching moment.
Yeah, really, one of my not favorite in a but I think it was one of the standout moments of the.
So we get a couple. We get Pacey saying he could have stopped it.
Yeah,
we get
really
the kid who found him. Say like he keeps imagining it and keeps wondering why God wanted him to find him.
Yeah, he's haunted by the image. He also says that Matthew was the first gay person he ever saw, which is a very childish way of looking at it because, as Steve Buscemi said, there's loads of people who aren't necessarily openly gay, so he is supposed to be like a young religious point of view, isn't he?
Yeah, and then we kind of see the impact it had around the country. So there's vigils held across America.
Yeah,
we get various people talking. We get Bill Clinton saying that like discrimination's bad. He wants to pass some legislation.
We get Ellen DeGeneres crying, saying something about this shouldn't happen, which
it's there to highlight that this was a nationwide issue.
So these are real. This is real.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it because obviously it happened when I was a kid in a different country. But in America, I think,
especially in the American LGBT community, this is probably a more known thing.
It's kind of seen as one of the pinpoints in gay people getting rights.
And they talk about hate crime legislation, and I think by the end of the film, it's still kind of up in the air, but it was definitely one of the cases.
I know about like Stonewall and stuff, but
that's
like the start of a movement, and this seems to be quite like a catalyst in gay rights. But so then there's this a homophobic farmer who's saying the gay community had taken advantage of the attack. He's saying like, oh, this attack equates to like 10 murders, 10 straight murders would get the same reaction to this. And he's like, he says he doesn't like hate homosexuals, but like he says he doesn't approve of homosexuals, but these kids still shouldn't have done this to him.
Yes, that's a lot of the thing. They're not relenting on their homophobia, but they are. I wouldn't even say they're condemning the attack, really. They're just like, a lot of the opinion of the older people is like, oh, it's a real shame that happened to that boy. But also like, if he hadn't been gay, it wouldn't have happened. So maybe he shouldn't have been gay, kind of thing. It's like,
and then
as if he had any choice in the matter.
Yeah, we get the gay farmer comes up and he kind of explains that live and let live in reality means, and excuse my language, but if I don't say I'm a fag, you won't beat me up. Is kind of what live and let live actually means.
That's what he says. Yeah.
And it's like, he's like, they say that, but what they mean is don't tell me or I'll beat you up.
Yeah.
Which does seem to be the vibe we get from people in this town.
Yeah. And it's kind of conflicting views again throughout this, but the vibe, at least.
Yeah, we get one guy here who compares gay people to animals, in that like violence against animals is overlooked, and kind of says gay people are the same. Is that the one where
he's saying about what he tells his children or something?
Yeah, I think so.
That might be later on.
We get some more. There's like a riot nearly in New York in protest.
Yeah, there's a protest and the police are being kind of abusive, and it's quite kind of, you get these haunting. The whole world is watching is like being chanted. It's very kind of hammering home the kind of implications of of the whole thing.
Aspects of it remind me of the Black Lives Matter stuff we've seen in recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. How, one event that's not a unique event, but it's almost, it captures the zeitgeist.
It's kind of like everyone has heard of this happening or knows somebody that this could happen to. It's horrible, but it's not surprising kind of event.
I mean, you think this is without social media as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's the right people were involved to, the right people in newspapers and stuff obviously made the call to get the ball rolling. And
so then we get Sunday 9 a.m. October 11th. Matt is in critical condition.
Dr. Connors comes out again.
And even he says he doesn't agree with the lifestyle. So it's even like the better people in this are still not comfortable with gay people.
And this is why we talked about Steve Buscemi at the start, because he's one of the people who seems to truly be
okay with it all.
He's not an active ally in any way, but he's like the least you can expect, I think, really. Do you know what I mean?
Just somebody that doesn't care if you're gay or not, and genuinely doesn't care.
Is happy to drive you out to a gay bar and go for a night out. Is happy to be friends with somebody. Literally doesn't care. I think that's the bare minimum you can expect.
You get more people like Margot Martindale and Pacey, who actually, they're straight people involved in the gay kind of community. Are kind of the standouts. But Steve Buscemi is like, so what is the bare minimum, as you say.
And basically there's no change in the care, basically.
We do then get there's a couple other bits interviews that I'll skim over, but Clancy Brown, the DA, kind of says that he never really been comfortable with homosexuals, but seeing this, he said he's not going to stand for homophobia anymore. Since he got involved with the case, he's like, I can't sleep anymore thinking about this.
He says about he said, I think this is the "This Is America" part that we see. If you watch the trailer, it's lots of interspersed bits. He says, "This is America, and people shouldn't feel unsafe because of who they are." And it's the very, very good attitude to have, obviously, especially for someone in a position of lawmaking, position of power.
And someone that admits that they used to be more ignorant.
And he even says, I may have lost a couple of friends from my kind of
for taking such a strong stance.
And it's like, they weren't friends that you wanted to have, really, were they? If that's the case.
We then cut to this, like, it's like a house, like, chill party. It's like a small group of, like, gay community in Laramie, kind of having a little get together, and they've invited the theatre crew to come along with them. And we find out like half the theatre crew are gay.
I think it's like 4 out of 6 or something like that.
I think they're like, me, this person are gay. Those ones are
2 women and 2 men.
Oh, okay.
So it's at least 4, but
I know it's the main guy, the guy that Nestor Carbonell plays.
Moses. And there's the guy. Oh, we didn't mention right at the start. He's very hesitant to be involved. The second man,
he's almost quite scared to go to the town
because he's openly gay and he's used to being openly gay. And he's worried about putting himself in that kind of line of fire, effectively.
It's like
it's kind of like I don't know if it's horrible to say, but kind of like a war journalist.
That's what I was gonna say.
In a kind of LGBT way, because
like you genuine, like you want to go there to report on it, but your life may be in danger.
Absolutely, and it is amazing that these people did this.
And
we wouldn't know as much as we do now.
Exactly. And they get talking to these people. Some of them aren't openly out. Only the other kind of gay people are aware of them. And they kind of describe how like it's a genuine day-to-day fear. And what really scared them about the Matt Shepard case is that it could have been any of them. Like Matt Shepard wasn't particularly unique or stand out. He was just another gay guy in Laramie.
He wasn't doing anything different to the things that any of them would do.
It's
not. He wasn't doing.
And that's the fear.
He wasn't overly hostile. He wasn't a big presence in the community. He was just a person there.
Which it's kind of with the people who are just like, oh, we don't care about gays. Just do their own thing. It's easy to say as a straight person in Laramie. You hear the LGBT community who are genuinely scared for their lives
it's
every
really
day.
Put that in the mindset for them. The one part that you kind of skipped over there, which I think worth talking about very quickly, is it's another thing of like this, not this kind of town, but this woman is she's very passionate about the fact that people are brushing over the situation and not allowing themselves to be sad. And she's saying that like we have to own the fact that America is like this, and it's and she's kind of
she's basically saying like Laramie is trying to
like erase who it is, kind of thing.
It's trying to clear its name of being this kind of town like instead of owning it.
The present as a history kind of thing. And I just thought it was I thought that was kind of poignant, because we get a lot of stuff like this, whether it's a woman being killed by a policeman last year, or whatever it is. There's lots of things like this where we do move on from things very quickly, and we as our kind of microcosm, our echo chamber, we fairly good with things like this and recognizing things, but we do as a society move on from things really quickly.
Is why things like the murder of George Floyd, just one guy getting killed by police, exploded into a mass worldwide movement, because there is people who don't forget this stuff, and everything come together explodes. So like all these nationwide outrage isn't just because Matt Shepard got killed. It's because gay people get killed. It could be any of them.
Exactly.
Then we get the next day of Sunday, 3 p.m, October 11th. Matt is still in critical condition, and the doctor comes out and says they won't be given any more updates until something changes.
So effectively they've been coming out every day at a certain time and updating, and there's no change to the. And also, why should he have to keep addressing the media? He feels, although he's doing his job, he's going above and beyond now, because his job isn't to address the world with things. And I think they're just like, we're being realistic here.
Then we get the Laramie homecoming parade of the uni.
Initially, so there's a bit of a story here, but initially when we see it, it's kind of a weird juxtaposition. Did you feel that?
It's all see, like the big band and stuff.
And then we see a couple of people. I can't remember who's watching, one of the policewomen and someone else, and they're just like somber, and it's like it feels wrong that they're doing this parade. But obviously then it's a parade for other people as well.
Get a point of view from a gay guy who lives basically on the corner of the high street.
That's right.
Who he's broken his legs. He is having to stay inside, and he's watching it.
And he's got windows going like north and south or something.
And he says
can see two streets.
At the end of this parade, he sees this banner of students walk in for Matt. They've got a sign, and there's like 15 of them.
It's just like a little homemade thing,
including Christina Ricci and Pacey. But he kind of was almost.
I think Margot Martindale's there as well.
And he's kind of almost brought to tears, because he was like, "I wish I could be there."
He said he's 52. He's been kind of openly gay for however long, and he's really moved by it.
And then because the parade goes around the front of his house and the back of his house.
It kind of loops around the block.
So when it goes around the corner, he quickly makes his way to this other side of his house. And then he sees come around the corner, the same we're standing for Matt, but now there's hundreds and hundreds of people who have joined.
It's like 5 times bigger than it was. And it's even bigger than the rest of the parade itself. It's like little add-on part at the end that was just almost like a memorial part.
It's now over half the parade. And it's quite like a heartwarming, and he kind of says that, like, he kind of says thank you to Matt that he could witness this, because as a 52-year-old gay man, he's never seen this kind of support for the gay community.
It is very heartwarming, and I thought that again, this is one of the kind of moments that stood out to me.
It's just a bit bittersweet that it caused a tragedy to bring this.
There's moving through this. There is a couple of parts like that where people are saying very nice things about it, but it is very bittersweet in the way that it obviously had to happen.
And then, juxtaposed with that, we get the interview of Laura Linney. Laura Linney's character, I don't want to tarnish Laura Linney's name by saying she said all this, but she's basically said, like, nobody deserves this, but he's not a martyr.
She's heard some stuff about him, basically.
She's like, she don't know him, but like, she knows his character and that he was spreading AIDS and the type of person he was.
She calls
he
him
was just a
barfly,
barfly, and he pushed himself around, flaunted it, and it's like, oh, fuck off, fuck off. Her husband's a patrolman, and says that a patrolman had been killed in a car accident recently. Well,
I think it was like the same day or a day
and she was
apart.
like, and nobody's making big movements about that.
Yeah.
And the interview's kind of like, yeah, but that was an accident. This was a brutal murder. She was like, why is it different? Is it because he's gay? Why is Matt exceptional? And then she says that I don't understand. And it's like, at least you know you don't understand, because what you've just said is horrible.
It's like, it's so thinly veiled homophobia that it's not even veiled at all, practically, is it?
Yeah,
it's again, it's a standout moment, but not in the right way, you know. If you like thinking about it, since we kind of started talking about it today, thinking about if these are kind of word for word transcripts, or even if they are embellished at all, like, it's, you think about if that's a real person saying that, it's just like,
what it's also like, these people are so aware that they don't want to come across as homophobic. They choose their words really carefully, because they know they're horrible people.
And it's only when someone gets in a bit of a rant or whatever that maybe sometimes they'll let things slip, and you'll go, oh yeah, okay, that's really what you mean. Or sometimes people, they're so, they don't even, they're so defensive about it because they don't believe that they are. That's
Did you see that Louis Theroux documentary where he met like some members of the alt-right in America?
I don't think I did. No,
I saw a clip where he's talking to this guy, and he's like, we're not racist, we don't hate, and he's trying to, Louis Theroux's trying to have a genuine conversation. It's like, we're not racist, we don't hate black people, we just kind of have our politics. And Louis Theroux's like, okay, cool. He kind of asked questions. He's like, I've also got this picture of you doing like a Nazi salute. And he was like, no, I was just saluting. It's not a Nazi salute. And he's like, yeah, but people think it is. And then he gets like really defensive and starts having a go at Louis Theroux. He's like, look, I'm just asking the questions. People are saying you did a Nazi salute. Have you got any response to that? He's like, I'm not a Nazi, like, and then like he's like, get off my house. He's like, I'm not in your house. I'm in the garden. And this guy like storms off. It kind of reminded me of that, of like, people getting irate at being told what they are.
It is very much that. And I've seen, I think I have seen that clip. I've seen, was it there was a KKK one that he did? Was it the same thing?
No, this is a recent one, I think.
An older one, yeah. It reminded. Did you ever watch what was the Charlie Brooker Death to 2021 thing?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the 2022. I never heard anything about it.
No.
But 2021, the woman who plays the mother in How I Met Your Mother, she plays like a very white, very blonde, conservative housewife.
Oh, yes, I do remember seeing that.
The Laura Linney character reminds me of like a 90s version of her. Do you remember in that? She's very like thinly veiled racism, and she gets to the point where she like looks at the cameraman or the like boom mic operator off to the side. She's like, she realizes he's a black guy, and she's like, did he come in with you, kind of thing. And it's like, it's obviously a joke, and it's very parodied but an extreme, but it's not that far from the kind of stuff that you see.
And then the next scene we get almost a bit of surprising things. So the openly gay guy and the lesbian of the theatre group go to see a Catholic priest.
Yes, because we haven't seen any Catholic side.
We saw the priest earlier who was ranting about.
But this is a different one side. Yeah.
And they go to see him, and he's surprisingly nice.
Yeah,
I think they went. Even the gay guy jokes about like, oh, I shouldn't be going to a Catholic church.
Yeah.
But like, he's like, Matt served us well. Like, he did a lot for this community.
Yeah. So I don't know, was he a practicing Catholic? Because
I guess so.
I did think it's, again, when they're saying, oh, he did a lot for the area and stuff, it feels, something about that feels very gross to me. And I know that it's this kind of martyrdom idea, which I don't know. I don't particularly agree with, but anyway, he goes on to be quite.
He said a line that really stood out. That was like, they committed an act of violence.
Yes.
But every time you are called a fag, a les, a dyke, this is also an act of violence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like,
violence
he gets it
as well as physical.
Which is surprising as the Catholic priest of
and he's very likable, because the certain slurs that he mentions there, one of the ladies kind of contributes that, and he's kind of laughing while he's saying it. It's not in a kind of horrible way. He's very amiable, and he's very positive about the whole thing, and you can tell that he
really gets it.
He knows, he really gets it. And he says as well, like, he almost asked for permission from the bishop to do the candlelight vigil because of the topic, because it was a gay man. And he was like, no, why should I have to ask for permission? Like, it's my diocese, it's my church. Someone died, I'm gonna celebrate their life, mourn their death, kind of thing. And it's a surprisingly progressive
and the two theatre people are almost taken aback about how forward and progressive
and
he is.
And we see the end of the interview played on the recorder for the rest of the group, don't we?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of clapping, and they're this is the kind of stuff.
It's as I said, a Catholic priest in like a small Wyoming town is the last place you'd expect a really forward-thinking middle-aged guy. But yeah, he's great.
And then we kind of again get it juxtaposed with the reverend of the other group, who, although he is very much condemning the actions, is doing them to such a degree that he thinks that they deserve the death penalty, the two boys.
Yeah.
And he also then talks about
one of the worst things I've heard.
Yeah, he basically says that he hopes while Matthew was tied and was dying, basically, that he had time to reflect on his lifestyle while he was tied to the fence, basically.
Yes, he's basically saying, like, I hope in his dying moments he realised that he was a sinner type thing.
Yeah.
And the lesbian woman we then see, and she's really annoyed with herself that she just listened to that.
Yeah, because she's interviewing him on the street, and then she goes back in and she kind of has a bit of a, not a breakdown, but she has an emotion.
She kind of just wants to leave Laramie at that point.
Yeah, because this is getting to, they've been there for, I imagine a week or so at this point. And she was one of the people at the start who's kind of hesitant about the whole interviewing process, because they're theatre people, they're not journalists. They're doing this amazing journalism effectively, but it's they're not used to this.
They're from New York as well, which is a big city, more progressive, more accepted. So they're very much out their comfort zone, and they know it.
Yeah, and she talks early on about how do you get people to talk to you candidly and all this stuff. And I think she's found that it's easy to get people to talk, but it's managing your own reactions, being someone who is
trying to
deeply
be
affected.
Objective.
Yeah, and the thing is, at the end of the day, they can't be fully objective with this because it is horrific and it has affected them and their community.
So we get another time update. It's Monday, 4:30, and Matt's blood pressure has dropped, and then Matt has died that day
with his family there.
His family get rushed over, and he dies, and he's been in hospital for maybe a week.
I think it's about a week at this point. Yeah.
And he's been in a coma this whole time. So like his last waking moments were tied to this fence, essentially.
Yeah.
And we get the doctor reading the statement, and he breaks down in tears.
And he kind of we see it cuts to him talking to the camera after, and he's saying like, "Oh, we'd barely slept for the past 72 hours and stuff." He's kind of almost making excuses, but then
he also says like at that moment he's thinking like, "I've got a daughter,"
because the part of the speech the part of the statement that he was reading was when the parents were saying, like, to the journalists, to the world, go home, hug your children, cherish them, all that sort of stuff. And as he was about to get to that bit, I think he felt that resonate with himself and almost couldn't carry on with the statement for a part. And he does have quite a public kind of moment there, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he said he got quite a big response, mostly positive letters being like,
emails
thank
and
you.
letters,
but some homophobic ones, one quote, and again, excuse the language, but he got a letter saying, "Do you cry on TV for all your patients or just the faggots?"
Yeah.
Which kind of really drilled home the fact that a lot of these homophobic people just like, he's just another guy.
Yeah.
But he's not. Like, people don't get killed for their sexuality for being straight.
No, exactly.
And the brutal nature of this murder is particularly disgusting.
It is. And, going back to the details where they talk about, it was it was a car crash. This is... Even the fact that he was tied, they talk about it again later. They had chances to go back on what they did multiple times. It it wasn't necessarily premeditated, but it wasn't a crime of passion. They didn't shoot him and leave him, you know.
And things like taking his shoes is like a dehumanizing act. Yeah. It's not just hitting someone.
And even the fact that he was left for such an extended period that someone they could have changed, that they clearly were either okay with it or were okay enough to, you know, leave him there effectively, or they felt such guilt or shame. But as we find out, one of them doesn't seem to have any guilt about it at all, really, does he?
Yeah. We'll get to that. We've got
I think that's pretty much where it is.
Oh yeah.
Well, we've got a little bit before that, because the charges get updated to first-degree murder now, don't they?
Yeah. So we've got the funeral. It's absolutely pissing down with rain. And they say they've got 2 churches having the service because there's so many people, and there's still hundreds of people outside
overflowing into a park who can't get in. Being used.
And then we see the cunts.
I think so. Looking at some stuff about it, I think it's the Westboro Baptist Church.
It is the Westboro Baptist Church.
They don't name them in this.
No, but they name Fred Phelps,
right? Okay,
who is the leader of the Westboro. So yeah, there's people protesting his funeral. Those signs that say like "God hates fags."
The worst. So we see Christina Ricci and her sister Margaret Martindale.
Yeah,
which is a very strange sentence to say. Driving up to the funeral, and then we see close up of a particular sign that's got a stick man burning, and it says "Matt in hell." And you can see their reactions. And
they break down. And like at this point, most people know the Westboro Baptist Church as just like these cunts that just picket funerals of. Yeah. And they'll do things like they'll picket soldiers' funerals and say this happened because we allow gay people in this country. Yeah.
And some
like
of
the worst people.
Some of the signs and languages, it's disgusting.
And they're from like the southern states of America. They've traveled to Wyoming, like across America, to protest this kid's funeral.
It's the negatives of it being a public worldwide thing, isn't it? That you get the good with the bad. You get I say good. You get the hopefully neutral observations from the world.
But every time you see Fred Phelps, you're just like, please, somebody punch him in the face.
Well.
Sam just motioned a trigger action.
I mean, it's America. I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
There's good guys with guns, as Trump said.
But I think the Westboro Baptist Church, a lot of their funding comes from like being NRA attacked and suing people for like assault, and then that funds their next protest.
Did you see? I can't remember where it was. There's that church that have like golden assault rifles as part of their like stuff.
Oh, I think I might have seen.
I'm pretty sure they've got like
only in America.
It's almost like it's not Catholic, but it's like the kind of Catholic, you know, finery with the gold and stuff like that. But it's like AR-15s and like machine guns are like. I'm pretty sure they're like the altar is made of them. And the priest is literally, or the reverend, whatever minister, is like holding it as part of the ceremony. I'm pretty that it's so weird. Yeah. Like where. I mean, like, why do you think guns have anything to do with
gun culture God? In America? I find weird anyway. The extent of that is just like what
perfect fusion. I saw it recently and I was just like, I think it kind of went viral about a month or two ago, and it just right. Yeah, obviously I've forgotten about it.
So yeah, the next bit we got is 5 months later after the funeral.
Oh no, we got the angel action bit first.
No,
is that this part?
Yeah. So it's the state versus Russell Henderson. So one of the murderers is on trial.
Yeah.
Fred Phelps has returned for the trial.
This is what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And planning an event, and then we get quite a poignant moment of Christina Ricci, Pacey, Margot Martindale. Sorry, we don't know the characters' names.
And we're not even giving Jacob Johnson or whatever his real name.
Joshua Jackson.
Exactly.
Jacob. They basically like there's as long you get a lasting shot of Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church being the cunts that they are.
Yeah.
And then like these 8 people, including those 3 that I just mentioned, turn up dressed as angels with like huge wings sticking out from like their shoulders.
Yeah.
And they basically come along and just stand in front of the Westboro Baptist Church to like cover them.
Yeah, because they've already been cordoned off into their little protest area because because even though they're being incredibly offensive and, you know, as the priest said, they're being verbally violent, very much so, with the words they're choosing and the phrases, but they've got their little cordoned off bit, and then in the bit just around that, they basically form a barrier
and they all turn their backs to them, so nobody has to kind of look at them.
Yeah, and you can see there's a couple of them, you know, fully in tears, kind of very moved by this.
And then we get back to the jury, and we kind of hear that nobody in Laramie really wants to be on the jury because it's such like a hot topic.
Yeah, this bit was like intense.
Clancy Brown, they don't want to be what happened to Clancy Brown and lose friends because they're siding with the gays.
But the weird thing about this, and it's part of the weirdness of, I say weird because it's very different to the way that
we do things.
Legal proceedings done here. I think I was talking to someone recently about the fact that we don't have any cameras in courtrooms.
Yeah.
Courtroom sketches are a thing because of that, which is weird and antiquated, but makes sense because of privacy and all that sort of thing. But one of the things that they talk about here is that the jury selection is done in front of the accused.
Yeah, so they literally, when you're being asked the questions to be on the jury, they get asked, would you be willing to put this person down with Russell Henderson sitting there
death,
in the room?
They say to death.
They put him down. Put to death. And like it's people he knows.
Yeah, and they're going through like tens of these people, and he's having these people say yes in front of him.
Yeah,
and you can just see the reaction to him. And I think
that is like a horrible. Like obviously he's a horrible person.
That's like a torture in itself. You know. And then I think it's Margot Martindale, someone who knows him, is saying like that's, regardless of what you've done, that's a horrible thing. And then because of that, he's changed. He
changed his plea to guilty. And they say. So guilty plea carries 2 life sentences for kidnapping and first degree murder, which can be carried out consecutively or concurrently.
So a life sentence is how long?
25 years.
Is it? Okay. But they say 25 to life sometimes, don't they?
Do they?
Yeah. So effectively,
I think it's 25 here, maybe slightly different.
But if they were consecutive, then it's 50 years. But if it's concurrent, it's just 25, right?
Yeah.
So, because then we get Russell's grandmother doing a plea.
Yeah, she says I kind of have some sympathy for her because it's her grandson. You can understand why she
says she raised him, and we don't hear from the parents, so we're assuming that maybe she.
And it is a factor. Clearly, she did a shit job of raising him.
Of course, yeah.
But she's like this old woman, and she says like her heart aches for the Shepards.
Yeah,
and she's grateful for their mercy, kind of implying that it wouldn't be outrageous for them to have just killed her grandson.
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
And asks for Russell to serve concurrent, not consecutive.
Yeah, so that 25 rather than 50.
Because it's 50, he'd be like 70 when he gets out.
Yeah.
That's his life done.
Yeah.
And then Russell makes a statement.
Yeah.
He's saying he regrets what he did.
It's hard to tell from the performance. It's not like he's not breaking down, but he seems kind of. It's not super convincing, but it could
he says he gives sympathy to the parents. He almost kind of talks about it as like an out of body experience of like, I don't remember doing that, although like I do remember it, some kind of thing.
Yeah, he says he can't stop thinking about it and all that sort of thing. And the judge just goes, I don't believe you, basically.
And say like, I don't think you see the gravity of the situation. And sentences him to...
I think he goes through the fact that it wasn't a spontaneous thing, as I said a couple of times.
And he was sitting there tied up for 18 hours before he was found.
Go back multiple times and get him. And then
he's sentenced to 2 life sentences consecutively.
Yeah, well, he says for the entirety of your natural life, he says. So I think
that's just what the official words for a life sentence.
But like the grandma's crying, he's like fucked, basically.
Yeah, and then we hear that the Mormon church excommunicated him.
Yeah, because they said earlier on, didn't they? I think the landlady was in the Mormon church with him, maybe.
Then we then get another cutscene back to the actor guy who did Angels in America, and he's saying that there is a performance of Angels in America coming up, and he's auditioning for the lead role.
Yes,
because playing that role was what got him the award for Best Actor in Wyoming or whatever it was.
Best actor in Wyoming.
Yeah, and he had argued with his parents about it because they said, homosexuality is a sin. You playing a homosexual is wrong. And he kind of makes the point. He's like, I've just played Macbeth, a murderer, and you don't care. Murder's also a sin. And it is that kind of double standards that you see.
Absolutely. It's a really good point. And I was like, yes, fucking go off, mate. Like, honestly.
It's like, he played a murderer and it's fine.
And it's like the parents had seemingly had nothing to say to that.
No issue with that.
What would they say? Yeah.
Yeah. Murder's a sin. More so than homosexuality.
I think everyone would agree it's a worse sin. Even if you think that homosexuality
even like the actual homophobic stuff in the Bible is quite vague and
they mention it at some point and they talk in this about it's kind of denouncing the action but not the person. And that's the kind of official religious review the religious review of homosexuality is.
Oh god.
5 stars, of course. It's my religion that I've made up.
Okay.
Samism. Effectively, the view should be, from what people are saying, is that you still love the person, even if you denounce the act, which effectively is denouncing who they are as a person. But it's this weird kind of separation that I think allows people who are religious to believe that they're not being cruel and they're not being unkind because it's love all God's creatures.
Some bullshit.
It's a strange separation.
Then we get the state versus Aaron McKinney. So the other kid is on trial.
Well, we get Reggie, the police officer, talking about how I think at this point she's maybe on the drugs.
I think this is
because she talks
later
very quickly about she's glad she did the right thing. She's happy with it, and her daughters are kind of proud. We get her again at the end, but yeah, she basically says like, I think at the time she wasn't ever conflicted about what she did, but she was stressed about it, and she's kind of now come to she's happy that she did what she did, even if she is potentially infected at this point.
It's 6 months later, the state versus Aaron McKinney. And there's like a debate on the death penalty, essentially.
Yeah.
He's still
Clancy Brown plays the interview, does he? Is that this bit?
Yeah. So he's like, hey, I've got this interview I had with him 2 days after the attack. And Aaron McKinney...
He is slurring a lot in this.
Yeah, so I will say parts of this, again, quoting. His version of events is some guy wanted to lift, looked like a queer, a fag. We met at the bar. He asked what we were drinking. He wanted to lift home. We drove past Walmart and he grabbed my genitalia.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not a faggot. Touch me again and you'll get it. And then I beat him up pretty badly. So like, he's admitting to beating him up, but kind of putting the blame.
He says, so badly I could have killed him. I don't know, or something like that. Like, which is like, he's clearly a moron as well as being a homophobe, because he's admitting, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's so clearly deluded in that he's fine to have done what he did. That he's on tape admitting that he's
so homophobic. He doesn't think beating up a gay guy for being gay is a crime.
Yeah.
And then we get a point with one of the gay women in the town.
Yeah.
Who's like, I was so angry that his defense was that he made a pass at him.
Yeah.
Because like, that means that some people believe that he deserves it for making a pass, which is outrageous. But at the same time, she said, actually, I'm glad that that's his defense, because then he has to say all this shit.
Yeah.
And it's out there.
The gay panic defense, basically.
Yeah.
And she says that she's really glad they didn't go with a robbery or a drug story, because he's having to be candid and kind of shoot himself in the foot in terms of his homophobia, whether he's admitting it's homophobia or not, basically. And I think it's the same lady, or it's maybe Margot Martindale, whoever it is kind of at this point, again, reiterating this quote that she wishes that they were from another town, but they weren't, unfortunately.
Yeah,
at this point,
this is what Laramie is like.
It's the nail in the coffin for anyone thinking that it could have been anyone else, because he's been a complete idiot and admitted to it 2 days after, effectively.
Then we get another revelation, part of the judge, part of the doctor, saying Aaron McKinney came into hospital 20 minutes before Matt did.
Yeah, it's this weird, again, twist of fate.
He'd gone back into town, got in a fight.
Yeah.
And
his girlfriend or wife or whatever had brought him to...
Yeah, and he was laying just a few beds away from Matt.
Yeah, and at this point, the doctor, I think this is Peter Fonda, didn't know who he was, didn't know the connection, and he talks about caring for both of them with compassion.
Yeah,
and he still feels compassion for both of them because he's a doctor and it's his job, it's his
job. Yeah, and then the jury finds him guilty of kidnapping and murder, which is more impact on him because he's still pleading not guilty, whereas Russell Henderson had pleaded guilty because he'd heard the testimonies.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And then we get a couple of statements. So Matt's dad stands up in court.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the most emotional parts.
Yeah, so some bits he kind of says he wonders about what Matt would have become.
Yeah.
He describes like people talking about him being alone, but he wasn't there. He was with his friends.
Yeah.
His friends were the stars at night that we often sat and watched, the sunrise that Matt always loved. The trees in the distance, and God was there with him. It's all quite deeply emotional stuff.
And he says his son didn't always look like a winner, but he was like the biggest winner to him, and his son was his hero to him. And he kind of ends it. He
says like, I want nothing more than you, Aaron McKinney, to die.
Yes.
And kind of turns around and looks at him as he says that. But he says, however, there's a healing process, time to show mercy. I don't suggest the death penalty. I'm giving you life, but I want you to remember every single day that you have life and Matt doesn't.
Yeah, he goes through it like every birthday, every Christmas, every Thanksgiving.
I want you to think of Matt.
Him,
and he's like, I give you life in the memory of someone who doesn't. It's quite powerful.
It's really hard hitting, and I think, compared to some of the other moments, they kind of got to me, but this, like, it was, 2 hours ago, basically. And like, I was just here and I was like, fuck. Like, I welled up a little bit. I was like, damn, this is like...
even kind of going back to it is quite emotional.
Yeah, I can see when you're reading it out.
But we don't get the sentence, but I presume he's also gets 2 life sentences based on the testimony.
We don't actually, do we?
The media then leave as if nothing's happened, which is quite a statement in itself.
That's
they move on to a new topic.
It's the 24-hour news cycle, isn't it? Yeah. This is when we get Pacey being like, I was terrified to testify. It was really difficult. I had to keep talking to this person. I'm like, you come across like a bit of a jackass, but I guess that's kind of the point of it, really.
And then we find out that the policewoman is HIV negative.
She's negative
because they got on the drugs so quickly. She's clear, which was a relief because she seems like a good person. Like in a backwards town.
And it's funny. She says she kissed her kids, she kissed her husband. She went out for drinks with all the work colleagues. She was kissing everyone, men, women.
Her mum's like, they don't need to know that.
But I thought it was kind of funny because she's like, men, women, I don't care, I kissed them. And the mum, who's like clearly a bit homophobic, is like, stop talking about that. We're not going to hear. Like, oh, fucking hell.
And then it kind of ends. They kind of talk about there was no new laws passed.
Yeah, well, they say there's a bit from Angels in America, I think we see as well.
Yeah, that's like the final shot is Jeremy Davis. Is it Jeremy Davis? Yeah, Jeremy Davis.
Well, no, the final bit
in
is
Angels in America.
Steve Buscemi talking about the beautiful skyline, basically, and from a distance you can see like the blue lights and everything. And he says like it's the last thing that Matt would have seen, and it's beautiful and stuff. And there's a nicety about that. I also
but there's also the underlying. I think like the hate laws that they're campaigning for weren't passed until Barack Obama. 10 years later.
It's very much people. I think we see the rancher farmer guy. He feels very unsatisfied, and I think in the trailer it mentions that it's like we didn't really get anything concrete out of this other than just like sadness, basically. And that's just like shit, basically. And it kind of encapsulates the whole thing, really. Like the whole scenario, the whole events is just it is tragic, and it's just it's the fact, like you say, that no concrete laws were passed for 10 years after this. It's not good enough, is it?
And I know I've mentioned the George Floyd stuff. It almost seems like history repeating in that like everybody came together and like, this is shit. And you still got the police force full of racist cunts.
People make these little changes while the spotlight's on them, and I don't know that they go back, but we then have it happen again. So not enough changes made.
Very kind of powerful film.
Yeah, I thought it was really powerful. I thought it's, as I said at the start, it's something that's very important. And looking through just a couple of the YouTube comments, because this film is available on YouTube in full. So
it is uploaded by the I think
really?
I think it's they uploaded themselves.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so yeah, if anyone, even if you just listened through all of this, which you would have done to get to this point, if you have any interest in watching it, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah,
it isn't a light watch at all, but you'll know that from watching this.
But we kind of said before, like it's not an easy watch, but it's an important watch.
Really, yeah. And
I'm far more familiar with the LGBT movement in the UK than America, as I said, Stonewall. But like, I suspect Americans of a certain age would have heard of.
Well, this is what I was
Matt Shepard.
Say. Looking at the YouTube comments, there's lots of references to young gay people performing this in plays, and people saying like, I was so honored to be asked to direct this in my university, my school, as a young gay man, all this sort of thing. And it's clear that this play specifically means a lot to people.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. And I think that, as you say, Lewis, it's probably something that not resonates people with, because it resonates worldwide, I think, if you've got any kind of compassion, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I think that it's something that's probably more of a ingrained thing in modern history if you're from America, but I think that it should be something that people know about everywhere, to be honest. I'm surprised that I didn't know more about this, and I'm kind of I will be telling people about this, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So to end it, before we go into our thoughts and stuff,
before we continue our thoughts there,
I've got what then happened to Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson a bit later on to see. So if you remember, Russell Henderson was the one that pleaded guilty.
He's the one that comes across more likable in the film.
Pleaded guilty
with the grandmother.
Saw the testimonials, got 2 life sentences. McKinney pleaded not guilty, got 2 life sentences just because Matt's dad gave him sympathy, essentially,
rather than death.
So somebody 10 years later, in 2009, went and interviewed them, and interviewed McKinney. And McKinney said to the Denver Post, the night I did it, I did have hatred for homosexuals. He said him and Henderson zeroed in on the Fireside Lounge and did it because he was so obviously gay. And that was kind of his summary.
So it was premeditated.
10 years later, he's saying, yeah, I did it because they were gay.
So they were like raging about.
And I think it's still like, he still doesn't like gay people. He's like, yeah, I'm in prison, but like, they were gay.
And that's the one who seemed more likable.
No, that's the one that pleaded not guilty.
The one in the who was
the second one who went to court.
Yeah, he was saying everything.
Russell Henderson, a bit better. The one that saw the testimonies, pleaded guilty. No, the first one.
Yeah,
pleaded guilty.
He had the grandmother, the first one.
The grandmother was the second one.
Grandmother was the first one.
The second one, she was. Oh, yeah, no, you're right.
Grandmother was first one. The dad of
okay.
Matthew. Was the
he took a victim empathy course.
Okay.
To try and come to terms with what he did.
Yeah. Which taking the course is at least something, isn't it?
Yeah. Wrote a letter of apology to Judy Shepard, Matt's mum.
Yeah.
And said in this interview, I think about Matthew every single day of my life. I think about him and every single one of those days I've had and he hasn't. His family hadn't. His friends haven't. I'm so ashamed I was ever even a part of this.
Yeah.
So
he has taken the time.
He has kind of sin remorse. He's had time to think about what he's done. And he's really like, I can't believe that I was ever that person kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's
so it's kind of the two different ends, and
so the implication, I suppose, is that
Aaron McKinney was the leading. Yeah,
I was gonna say the leading force in it, but
it may not have been the case. But Russell Henderson at the time showed more remorse, and since has even grown more into that remorse. And so I thought,
well, that's good. It's good to know a little bit of but follow up kind of thing on them. Well, just to go back to, I guess, kind of thoughts in general. I mean, we've expressed some in general. I think I find it difficult to because I think in terms of, we say it's important, and I completely stand by that. It's important. I think it was emotional. I think in terms of as a film itself, trying to be objective and kind of cold-hearted about it, I think there was some stuff that wasn't perfect about the film.
Yeah.
I think some of the performances...
If we're trying to step away from the story and just judging the film...
which I think we're both feeling very involved in the story, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to detach it.
Yeah, distance.
Yeah. But, like, I could imagine a different film about Matt Shepard being... I think the main thing that held me back from... I mean, I enjoyed the... I say enjoy. I thought it's a good film.
Yeah, I've got that here.
I got deeply emotionally attached into the film. Even going back from it now, it's hard thinking back to it. It's probably the most emotional I've got from any film we've done.
Definitely, yeah.
But that is definitely more in the story.
Yeah, I think some of the editing is
I think the framing of how they did it, I would prefer if they just did a documentary or did an actual reenactment or something, rather than that. Oh, we're reenacting a theatre production team who've gone to interview them.
I think even if we knew more about the characters who were... because I think what they're trying to do is they are probably doing... Because I don't imagine the play jumps around as much. Surely you get talking heads for a monologue in the play, you'd imagine. But even just with I call them the crew, the people that are doing the interviews... We pick up pieces about them. We find out that certain ones are gay, certain ones are out, all this sort of thing. And you see that they are uncomfortable with certain situations and stuff, understandably. But I just feel like a lot of that could have been like a second, third emotional part of the film. And it's just hinted at. Like when she goes, "Oh, I wish I'd said something." It's like, yeah, but do you know what I mean? There's
Yeah, I think if we're really trying to take a step back and have like an objective discussion about the film as a film, I feel like the reason you get involved and emotionally attached into it is the story rather than the filmmaking. And therefore I'm not quite convinced by the film itself.
I think some of the performances, like one of the bits I was going to mention at the time, I thought
quite good. The cast is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The guy who talks about the parade, I liked the story, and I thought it was emotional and it hit the right beats. But there's certain parts that just didn't feel super. Like it felt like someone reading out someone's testimony to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean, and it's kind of a bit like weird and awkward that like these are people portraying real people, and it's like, what part of this is like genuine acting and what is them just reading the script? Sort of
it's
thing?
just there's certain level. I almost wish that we didn't have known actors in it, just so that. Because we're saying Clancy Brown, we're saying Steve Buscemi, and I get that the idea as well is to elevate the project and have it as something that people will see, people will recognize, and it will spread. It's like them being in a charity advert or in a Live Aid or whatever. You know, Steve Buscemi being in this small project.
He's in it like for 5 minutes.
But him being in this project about a young gay man who was murdered, you know, a couple of years after the fact, puts it back in the headlines, all this, and that's good, but it also takes away from the kind of
actual story,
the engagement almost. Do you know what I mean?
So I think end on ratings before we move. So I think I'll give it I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
I've got mine written down here.
Carried mostly by the story. There was flaws in it, but I think an 8 out of 10
I think, I'd written 8 out of 10 when I finished earlier today. I think part of me wanted to give it higher, but those little flaws there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you can't solely be driven by the emotional aspects. Whether it's the most
particularly
emotional
when it's not a script, it's a true story. So they didn't come up with the story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think if this had been a dramatized thing that was well shot, well edited, and it had this same level of emotional engagement, then it could be a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
But because it's a bit choppy and it's a bit found footage, and we all fucking hate found footage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I think 8's across the board.
We haven't done found footage in a while.
8's across the board is good.
Yeah, cool. Now it's time for
Personal Projects.
And this time, it's personal.
Projects?
Yeah, let's try and get more. That may be one of the most intense podcast discussions we've ever had.
We had a little break.
It wasn't the funniest episode we've ever done.
No, I was. You know what? I was wondering where we're gonna get the clip from this week.
Yeah, I think just go full heart in emotional.
Yeah,
these homophobic cunts are cunts.
Yeah,
line.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's the clip there.
Hey guys, homophobic people are cunts. You heard it here first.
I'm gonna start today.
Okay.
We're starting again. No, I'm starting Personal Projects. Because I watched The Umbrella Academy season 2.
Oh, finished it.
Finally, yes. Because I know, Lewis, you watched it when it came out. As most people do with programs. I thought it was okay. I thought I liked the concept and I liked the setting and all that sort of thing. It's always fun doing like a period piece, especially when the characters aren't from the period. But I don't think that they did a lot with it. And I think when it got to the point where, certain events have happened regarding JFK. Yeah. And then it's kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with the second part. Yeah. Or the last third.
I need to rewatch it. I'm not sure I entirely remember where
so I think you watched it all in like a day practically.
Yeah, probably.
After a friend of ours' birthday out in the country, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
No, it's older. It was longer ago than that.
Maybe, yeah. It was during the pod. You watched it all.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
it was before the pod.
Oh no, it was after something. It was after some.
It was after my 12th birthday.
Yeah, no, it was after. It was the day after some sort of big birthday event or something. I remember you saying. Anyway, yeah, pretty good. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the way it ends.
Yeah.
I've seen some casting about the new characters that were introduced.
I can't remember exactly how it ends. It's very sad when the monkey dies.
That's in the first season.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that was sad. It's the mother in the second season.
As a human person.
Yeah,
yes,
that's kind of weird and a bit sad.
I think that hang on, I just need to... David, ex guest of the pod,
previous guest on for the Blair Witch.
He's around somewhere, and I'm just gonna tell him not to. He said he's gonna drop by, which would be fantastic to get him on the pod. But I'll just tell him.
Yeah,
recording. At the
have
moment.
you got more to say about Umbrella Academy?
No, I was gonna talk about another thing, but you can.
Okay, so I've been watching more Gilmore Girls. Still brilliant. Highly recommend Gilmore Girls. Me and Christina are actually watching it. She's got into it as now. And I think what is great about Gilmore Girls...
This is going to be a bloody Gilmore Girls podcast.
I wish. Is that it is a sitcom. It doesn't follow typical sitcom tropes.
You know what?
Stuff happens.
I just had an idea. Hang on. Stop your train of thought. Oh. No, I'm joking. You carry on.
Typical stuff happens and you expect it to go one way because it's a sitcom and it doesn't. It does something different and you're like, oh, wait, no, this is actually originally written. This is better. This is great.
Do you think that any two men have ever made a podcast called Gilmore Boys?
No, and let's fucking do it. Gilmore Boys! So yeah, the other thing I've been doing, I mentioned early in the pod about making the Godzilla model. For listeners who've joined us more recently, basically I've got a shit ton of cardboard at home. I thought, during lockdown, what should I do with it?
And we're way out of lockdown now.
Yeah, still going. I'm slowly building a 5-foot tall cardboard Godzilla model. I've now built up most of the body, got the legs, arms, head.
Yeah, it looks good.
I've nearly finished the body. Then it'll be sticking the arms and legs on, and then the skeleton will be done. Then it'll be the next step of paper mache paint.
Yeah.
But it seems like we've made real progress recently, and it's looking. I've sent you a picture, and it's very much nearly at that finishing point. And
cool!
It's quite exciting. It's been good fun. Got a couple of burns on my fingers from bloody hot glue guns.
Oh wow! Got the glue gun out. Yeah, of course.
I love a hot glue gun. And you got one final thing.
Yeah. Another thing that you have also watched, Rick and Morty season 5.
Ah, yes.
Which I now finished as well.
Mostly meh. A couple of good bits.
So I asked you, I think it was off pods. Maybe it was on pods. whether there was any kind of continuation of the main storyline. And, I don't know if you're intentionally not spoiling it, but the final episode is very...
Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say, here's this happened. Yeah.
And so I didn't really understand what was going on because I was getting ready for work and I just wanted to watch something. So I was eating porridge, looking, as I seem to find myself doing, an article which explained what happened, because apparently I'm a dumbass who doesn't understand things.
Sounds like the sort of thing you do.
Sounds like, yeah.
That's the main reason we do this pod.
Yeah, so I can have a second person explain.
I can explain films to you.
It's funny that listeners will have probably a different opinion when they listen to the podcast.
Ooh, I'm not sure they do.
Well, I just have to ask them. Email at the
Email in. Who do you think knows their shit?
But the idea that I at least read was that the universe machine that was happening there at the Citadel was creating a pocket of universes where Rick was the smartest person, and by destroying that, the universe, it's effectively the same as what happens at the end of Loki, right?
Yeah,
the multiverse is fully open now, and then so there was the reason Rick was always the smartest person in every universe.
Rick's made it
because it was only the universes where he's the smartest person, which is an interesting thing to do. And
except the dumbass Rick, I presume.
Yes, I mean, I guess he was the smartest.
Maybe it was a really dumb universe.
Doofus Rick, I think he's called.
Doofus Rick, yeah.
Yeah, but I thought, as you said, some of the episodes were pretty good, and I thought like the crows thing was quite funny. If kind of it overstayed its welcome in the way that I think it was meant to. But yeah, generally pretty good. Did you enjoy it when you watched it?
Yeah, like I feel like the last couple of seasons of Rick and Morty have been pretty meh with a couple of standout episodes. Yeah. I thought the episode that he turned himself into a turkey, as dumb as it was thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah. A friend of mine was coming around mine just as we were watching that episode, and thoroughly enjoyed it.
I like how the president just has a vendetta against Rick, and they kind of like love each other. It makes
sense because it's the same president that's been throughout Rick and Morty. It's Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it's good, and I will watch more. I watched the first 2 episodes totally legally, wink wink, online before they're on Netflix.
On your HBO Max account.
Absolutely.
And HBO Max account.
I didn't feel the need to carry on now, and it's only because they're easy to watch on Netflix. So in about 2 years I'll watch them on Netflix again when they come out.
I watched them all on your HBO Max account.
Did you?
I did.
Oh, because they've only just gone on Netflix, yeah.
So I think that is the show.
So thank you everybody for listening. If you're a first time listener, please subscribe and let us know how you found it. If you enjoyed the episode, please tell your friends, family, co-workers, loved ones, enemies, lovers, acquaintances, haters, sheriffs, DAs, police officers, bartenders.
If you know character actress Margot Martindale.
Oh, so close.
Get her on the pod. She seems fun.
Yeah, she did a load of voice acting for
a
really program.
Really small thing you can do that literally takes 5 seconds. Yeah. I could literally do it on my phone whilst I'm saying this to you.
He's doing it. I can see he's doing it now.
Just give us 5 stars. Just open up your podcast. You're already on your listening device. Because you're listening to me say this. Literally just unlock your phone, press the little dots next to our name, just click rate, give us 5 stars. It's that easy. Honestly, like, it's so easy. Just do it, please.
Easier.
If you've got this far into the episode, then like we must be doing something right for you.
Unless you skip to this. Oh, I didn't mention the time codes. Okay, there's time codes throughout the episode.
Oh, that's
Did
fine.
I mention it?
No, you didn't. You didn't. But yeah, as well as giving us rating, you can get us in touch with us, particularly if this film affected you emotionally.
Yes. Yeah.
You can talk to us, can't you, Sam?
Especially if this resonated with you in the way that it did with us, or if you found this particularly, heartwarming, not the podcast, but the story more than anything, particularly kind of heart-wrenching, as I imagine lots of people would. You can talk to us about it at the projectpod@gmail.com. If you want to send us something that you don't particularly want read out on the podcast, we can absolutely do that. You can just kind of shoot your word off into the void and just no.
Just shoot your word off.
You know what I mean? You know, sometimes people just like to vent about stuff, and honestly, we're a public space as much as any, but we can be a private space if need be.
And even if you don't want us to put it in public, we can respond without
absolutely
talking about the pod.
I mean, I think if you don't want something read out, say. Yeah. Otherwise, we will read it out because we like to
this
engage.
Project in particular, it may affect people quite deeply.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. If you, you know, especially, you know, if you come from somewhere that isn't as accepting of people like Matthew Shepard, you know, you may need some kind of outlet, even if it is just, like I say, shouting out into the void. That's not what I meant, not shooting into the void. It sounds kind of weird.
Yes.
Shooting off into the
please void. Do get in contact.
But otherwise, if you don't want to send an email, all our socials are in the Linktree description, which is in the episode in the Linktree in the episode description, or you can search for the Project or the Project Pod on all social medias.
You can. And that is the show.
That is the end of today's episode.
Thank you for joining us. Yes. Please do check out the Laramie Project. And as always, I will hear you next week.
I'll see you next Monday.
Yeah, okay.
Bye.
Fuck the homophobes.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuck
cunts.
The homophobes.
Fucking cunts.
I get homotoads, I said. Homophobes. Fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them all.
Bye.
Fred Phelps is a cunt.